Have you ever felt that you are somehow different that nothing in this world can satisfy? Carl Jung called it the sacred dissatisfaction, the holy hunger of the soul. Most people panic when they face this emptiness. They think perhaps they are wrong, ungrateful, flawed. Why can't they feel happy when they have so much to be thankful for? But Jung said that the very moment you feel not enough amid abundance is when your soul begins to awaken. What once made you happy, a gift, a compliment, a hug, now feels fleeting. Not because you've grown numb, but because your soul is expanding and the old limits can no longer contain it. I once heard the story of a woman who had gone through years of striving, achieving what society called success, a dream career, stable income, and an apparently perfect relationship. But one night, in a brightly lit room, she suddenly felt lost. Not sad or lacking, just a vast emptiness opening in her chest, a void that nothing and no one could fill. That night, she didn't play music, didn't touch her phone, didn't try to distract herself. She just sat in silence. And in that silence, she heard a small voice whisper from within, "Everything you are living is not everything there is." That is the voice Jung called the voice of the soul, the one the modern world teaches us to silence, but that God uses to awaken us. This hunger does not come to everyone. It comes only to chosen souls. Because only those who have gone far enough in the material world can realize how fragile worldly happiness truly is. The feeling of not fitting into this world often comes before the soul enters a new phase. It's like when a young bird begins to feel that the nest once safe has become too small. If it didn't feel that discomfort, it would never dare to fly. Likewise, if you never felt emptiness, you'd never find the path back to yourself. The dissatisfaction you fear is the very way God pulls you out of the temporary and toward the eternal. Jung once said, There is no coming to consciousness without pain. The pain of emptiness does not come to punish you, but to break the shell of illusion you once thought was you, this body, this role, this story. When the shell cracks, the soul is revealed, and you suddenly understand that everything you once pursued, money, love, fame, were only pale reflections of the sacred thing your soul truly longs for. Many people try to escape this hunger by filling their lives with noise, work, social media, relationships, distractions, but the soul will not stay quiet. The more you ignore it, the louder it calls. Because what the soul desires is not outside, it is within you, in the place you rarely stop to listen. When God chooses you, He doesn't give you comfort, He gives you longing, and that is the greatest gift, because only when you are truly thirsty do you begin to search for real water. The chosen ones never find perfect happiness in this world, because they don't belong to this world. If you've ever wondered why you always feel something missing, the answer is simple. Your soul remembers home. And home is not a place you can walk to. It's a place you can only return to through your heart. The hunger you are trying to silence is the sacred compass reminding you that you are living far from your true center. It's not a bad sign. In fact, it's proof that you are ready for a new stage. Because only when the soul recognizes the limits of the finite does it begin the journey toward the infinite. The hunger of the soul doesn't destroy you, it destroys the shell that hides you, so your true self can emerge. So if one day life suddenly feels dull, if the things that once brought joy no longer move your heart, don't be afraid. Stop, breathe, and ask yourself, is my soul calling me home? This infinite hunger doesn't ask you to abandon the world. It simply reminds you not to give your heart to what is temporary. Beneath everything finite, something infinite waits to be found. And when you see it, emptiness ceases to be your enemy. It becomes the doorway that leads you back to yourself, where you no longer seek happiness, but become happiness itself. And that is the first step of the chosen soul. When it stops searching outward and begins to listen inward. Share your story below, that moment when you realized that nothing outside you could make your heart truly come alive anymore. Perhaps your story will reach someone standing at the same threshold, someone who only needs a small spark of light to step into their own darkness. Number 2. The continuous pain, when God forges you in the fire of trials. After the soul realizes that the material world cannot make it whole, the next stage is always dissolution. Because for the soul to be reborn, everything that no longer serves you must fall away. Jung called this stage the dark night of the soul. This is the moment when everything you once believed begins to shake. The people you leaned on walk away. The things you thought would stay prove to be temporary. Everything seems to collapse at once, making you feel as if God has abandoned you. But in truth, that is when He is closest. Only you haven't seen it yet. Jung once said, "The greatest and most important problems of life are all fundamentally insoluble. They can never be solved, but only outgrown. That is the nature of pain. It does not betrayal, and courage from solitude. One of the harshest lessons pain teaches you is that you cannot control everything. Humans often define themselves by what they can lose: relationships, careers, status, self-image. So when God takes them away, we feel empty, angry, rebellious. But that is not punishment. It is the lesson of surrender, a reminder that your soul cannot be defined by externals. Perhaps you are in a phase where everything seems to fall apart. Prayers go unanswered. People you trust turn away. The world feels colder than ever. But remember, gold is not created in comfort. It appears only after everything old is burned away. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." Pain is how God brings what is hidden into the light: your wounds, fears, memories, and attachments. He does not want you to suffer forever. He only wants you to see yourself. And when you dare to look, something miraculous happens. You begin to understand the pain of others. You become softer, more patient, more compassionate, because you know how it feels to lose, to hurt, to think there is no way out. Those wounds open a door in you, a door through which love can now flow more deeply. Many people ask, if God loves me, why does he let me hurt? But his love is not human love. It is not about shielding you from wounds, but about growing you through them. He knows that without loss, you would never learn faith. Without betrayal, you would never gain wisdom. Without loneliness, you would never hear his voice. Continuous pain is the sign that you are being prepared for a greater purpose. Just as a blacksmith cannot bend cold steel, God cannot use a soul that has never been tested. He entrusts responsibility only to those who know what it means to fall and still rise, to love even after being hurt. And one day, when you look back, you will see every collapse was a rebirth. Every tear was a prayer answered in a way you didn't yet understand. Every wound was a doorway back to yourself, truer, deeper, closer to God. So if you are in pain today, don't pray for it to go away. Pray for the courage to walk through it. Because in that very fire, God is writing the most sacred story of your life. Number 3. The yearning for solitude, when the soul withdraws from the world to be reborn in silence. When suffering deepens, the soul no longer seeks noise. It no longer needs the crowd, nor understanding, nor validation. Instead, another longing begins to rise, the longing for silence. Not external quiet, but an inner stillness so deep that all other voices fade, leaving only your breath. Carl Jung once said, "Loneliness does not come from having no people around you, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important to you." Only when you are still enough, brave enough to face silence, can you begin to hear the whisper of your soul, the sound that never disappears, only gets buried beneath the noise we chase. Solitude is not escape, it is sacred cleansing. If pain is fire, solitude is water washing away the ashes. This is where God teaches you, not through words, but through silence. Modern life makes solitude seem frightening. We fear being alone, fear nights without notifications, days without being called by name. But in Jung's view, solitude is the condition for the ego and the unconscious to meet. Without silence, you can never hear the soul, because it never shouts. It only whispers. Jung described solitude as the middle ground between the world and the soul, the place where we withdraw from the external to meet what was never lost within. When you sit still, you begin to see fragments of yourself you once denied, the dreams you buried, the wounds you never healed, the callings you silenced out of fear. Science confirms this truth. A 2017 Harvard study found that when humans spend time in deep silence, the brain regions linked to creativity, intuition, and emotional integration become more active. Silence is not emptiness, it is the soil of renewal. New neural cells are born when we stop, when the mind resets. So while the world tells you to move faster, your soul whispers, "Be still." A woman once shared her story with me. After her divorce, she moved to a remote mountain village for a year. No social media, no friends, no plans. Each day she simply cooked, walked, read, and remained silent. At first, silence terrified me, she said. It forced me to face myself, my mistakes, regrets, and unfinished dreams. But slowly I realized everything I had ever sought from others, peace, acceptance, had always been here, within me. A year later, she returned to the city transformed. When I silence, a new chapter begins. You start to listen and to follow that voice. From then on, your life is no longer ruled by fear or the urge to control, but by divine guidance. And that is the next step of the chosen soul, when it begins to walk in rhythm with God. If you have ever longed to be alone, not because you were tired, but because your soul needed to hear itself again, leave the word silence in the comments. Perhaps the moment you write it will be the moment your soul begins to be heard. Number 4. The need for control. When the soul learns to surrender, in order to lead with wisdom. Have you ever noticed that after finding peace in silence, challenges begin to appear again, but this time, not from the outer world, but from within you? Because when you return to life carrying the light that God has lit inside you, that light makes you see more clearly the chaos of the world, the wounds that need healing, the lost souls searching for meaning. And in that very moment, another urge arises. You want to help, to make things right, to protect others from pain. But what you may not realize is that this desire to control is itself a new lesson, the lesson of surrender. Carl Jung once said, "Through pride, we are ever deceiving ourselves." But deep down below the surface of the average conscience, a still small voice says to us, something is out of tune. And indeed, after the soul has learned silence, God teaches the next lesson, how to do nothing, not in the sense of passivity, but in learning not to force life, not to demand outcomes, not to place the ego on the throne of the sacred. In a Jungian therapy session, a woman once described this stage of her life. She had always been capable, strong, and in control of her work, her family, her plans. But when her only son fell into a deep psychological crisis in adolescence, all her logic and willpower became useless. She tried everything, doctors, books, therapy. But the harder she tried, the more her son withdrew. Until one day, exhausted and in tears, she let go. "I realized I can't save him," she said. "Maybe God doesn't want me to. Maybe He wants me to trust that He is working in silence." And strangely, only when she stopped trying to fix, when she began to simply love him without condition, the boy slowly opened, began to speak, began to heal. That is the essence of surrender, to release but not abandon, to love but not control, to act but not force. When you trust a higher will, you no longer try to manipulate life. You become a vessel through which life can flow. In Jungian psychology, this is the shift from the active ego to the surrendered ego, where one stops believing, "I am the doer," and begins to realize, "I am the instrument through which the divine works." The ego, which always thought it was the center, is invited to kneel, to make space for the wisdom of the soul, the part that knows balance without needing to calculate. The greatest trial for chosen souls is not the battle, but the trust. And trust requires a kind of courage greater than fighting, the courage to surrender. Because surrender is not weakness, it is the recognition that there is a greater intelligence guiding everything, a plan far beyond what we can comprehend. Jung once said, "What you resist persists." This is the spiritual law that chosen souls must learn. The more you try to control, the more you are controlled by what you fear. The more you try to hold, the faster things slip away, and only when you release does the miracle begin. If you observe closely, surrender is not just a spiritual idea, it is the law of all life. A seed cannot sprout unless it surrenders to the soil. A river cannot reach the ocean unless it accepts flowing down the mountain. And so it is with the human soul. Only when it stops trying to be God can it finally be guided by God. Surrender is the meeting point between humility and power. Because when you let go of personal will, you don't lose strength, you are empowered by a greater strength. When you stop asking, "What should I do?" you start hearing a deeper question. Who is God asking me to become? And from that space, your actions no longer come from fear or control, but from alignment with divine wisdom. One of the most beautiful symbols of this stage is the image of Mother Mary standing beneath the cross. She could not save her son from pain, could not control that destiny. Yet in her absolute helplessness, she chose to surrender, not in despair, but in trust. And that surrender became her greatest strength, making her the embodiment of unwavering faith and infinite compassion. You see, when God chooses a soul, He does not give them power to control, but the mission to surrender. Because only when you stop doing it your way can He begin to do it His way. Every time you pause, every time you whisper, "I don't know, but I trust," heaven moves through you. And one day, you will realize you no longer need to control to lead. Your very presence, your calmness, your steadiness become jobs, people, habits. Everything begins to change. You may feel uneasy, out of place. Nothing is wrong with you. Your soul is simply being called to a higher plane. I once knew a woman like that. After years of therapy and spiritual practice, she had finally built a balanced, peaceful life. But one morning, looking out at her garden, she began to cry without knowing why. "I am grateful," she said, "but something feels missing." Months later, she quit her job, sold her home, and moved to Africa to volunteer. Her family thought she had lost her mind, but she knew that if she stayed, her soul would slowly die in comfort. "I don't know what awaits me," she told me, "but I can feel God moving within me." The divine within us never rests until it is realized. This sacred restlessness is not chaos. It's the invitation to revelation, the moment when the inner light must be expressed outward, when purpose takes shape through action. Many misinterpret this restlessness. They think feeling unsettled means being lost, that they aren't peaceful enough. But the truth is, divine calling often comes disguised as unease. It's not anxiety, it's the alarm clock of the soul. If you stay too long in one place, this energy becomes stagnant, turning into emptiness or lack of meaning. In Jungian psychology, when one reaches deeper self-awareness, the life energy, libido, shifts direction from personal gratification to serving a greater purpose. The sacred restlessness is the sign of this transformation. It's like a river after the flood. When the water rises, it breaks old barriers to carve a new path. If you build a dam to hold it back, it will overflow and sweep you away. But if you learn to flow with it, it will carry you where you were meant to go, to the place where your soul can fulfill its purpose. This restlessness often leads to changes that seem irrational. New careers, relocations, endings of long relationships. But deep down, you know there's no turning back. Once the soul awakens, it cannot go back to sleep. And here lies the miracle. When you follow that call, even without knowing where it leads, synchronicities begin to appear, meaningful coincidences that guide your path. The person you meet, the book that finds you, the door that opens at the right time, all feel divinely arranged. This is the language of God. When you live in divine flow, the universe begins to speak to you through signs instead of words. That's when divine restlessness turns into divine purpose, when unease transforms into direction and action becomes a living prayer. Carl Jung once wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But to become yourself, you must keep evolving." The soul was not created to stand still. Sacred restlessness is the wind that pushes your sails forward, even when you can't see the shore. Not every movement means you're lost. Some winds come to carry you from shallow waters into the open sea. If your soul feels restless, trust that you are not broken. You are expanding. The world tells you to stay still, but your soul says, move. Divine restlessness is the fire God lights in the hearts of the chosen, to keep them from sleeping in comfort, to keep them expanding and carrying the light further. It is not a curse, it is a blessing, because only the chosen can feel that sacred wind, the one that won't let them rest until they become what they were born to be. So if you feel restless today, don't be afraid. Let it lead you. The unease in your heart is not a sign of being lost. It is heaven's signal. For God never lets the soul rest when it still has work to do. Number 6. The obsession with truth and responsibility, when the soul carries humanity's pain. Have you ever felt your heart ache, not for your own loss, but for the suffering of the world? You no longer cry for yourself, but for the abandoned child, the lonely mother, the people losing faith in a material world. When your soul has been awakened by God, the pain doesn't vanish, it expands. And this is when the chosen soul reaches its peak. From the personal to the collective. Carl Jung once wrote, "The individual who knows his own shadow has done something for the whole world." Because when you have seen and embraced the darkness within yourself, you begin to see the darkness of humanity, and you can no longer look away. This is the stage where you no longer live to be better, but to become an instrument through which God can bring light to the world. When the soul has endured pain, released control, and learned trust, it reaches the point where peace alone is no longer enough. True peace is not sitting quietly amid chaos, it is carrying that calm into the chaos without losing it. At this level, the soul stops praying for happiness and starts praying to serve. You begin asking questions not about yourself, but about humanity. and their very willingness changes the energy field around them. One of the most beautiful images of this stage is Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane. Before his crucifixion, he prayed, "Father, if you are willing, take this cup from me. Yet not my will, but yours be done." That moment was the ultimate act of cosmic surrender, where man and God became one. He knew the pain he bore was not punishment, but the vessel through which love would be revealed. From that moment, he ceased to be an individual. He became the embodiment of collective love. Likewise, chosen souls in ordinary life carry a fraction of that energy. They are not sent to avoid pain, but to understand it, so that through them, humanity may know that love still exists in the midst of suffering. Many at this stage feel obsessed with truth. They lose interest in half-answers. They seek only what is real. But this time they don't seek truth to prove it. They seek it to serve it. Such souls live simply, needing no fame or praise. Yet being near them brings comfort, understanding, and healing. They are the world's spiritual stabilizers, the ones Jung said, pull humanity back to its center whenever the world tilts toward darkness. If your heart aches not for yourself but for the world, don't be afraid. It is not a burden, but a calling. You are not chosen to escape the pain of humanity, but to help transform it. Because, as Jung said, the salvation of the world consists in the salvation of the individual soul. And when your soul is healed, that light doesn't stop at you, it spreads, touching the world. That is the summit of the chosen soul's journey. No longer seeking happiness, but becoming happiness. No longer seeking light, but becoming light. No longer praying for yourself, but letting your very existence become a living prayer for the world. Chosen souls, after walking through these 6 sacred vices, are like warriors forged in God's fire. They no longer need to prove or compete. For every trial, from hunger to pain, solitude, control, restlessness, and the obsession with truth, has become a sacred mark etched into their being. No wound was meaningless, no suffering wasted. All of it was part of the divine sculpting that shaped their essence. If you've ever wondered why your life feels harder, deeper, lonelier than others, perhaps it's not a curse, but a sign that you have been chosen. For chosen souls are not made in comfort, but in the fire of transformation. When they emerge, they not only find their light, they become the light for others. If this video touched you, awakened something, or helped you see your pain in a new light, share it with another soul walking a similar path. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next journeys, where we'll explore how the trials that once felt like weakness are in truth the very path leading you back to the true strength of your soul. Many women today mirror reflecting the spiritual essence of femininity in the universe, a vibrant spiritual code that everyone carries, regardless of gender. Femininity, in Jung's language, is a soft yet profound realm where emotions, intuition, receptivity, and creativity flourish. It is the cradle of life, of connection, of inner transcendence. But it is also the moon, mysterious, unpredictable, casting a gentle light on the darkness of the soul, while stirring tidal waves of emotions that reason cannot control. When overshadowed by wounds, femininity easily slips into a vortex of chaos, obsession, control, fantasy, and overreaction. Thus, when we speak of a woman embodying feminine energy, we are not merely referring to gentleness or softness. We are talking about a psychological force, an inner mechanism so subtle that even its bearer may not recognize it. A woman can channel feminine energy in two ways. Positively, when she lives authentically with her emotions, listens to her inner voice, and nurtures deep connections, or negatively, when she uses emotions as a weapon, controls through her wounds, and maintains power through insecurity. Jung did not limit this to women. He believed every man carries his unique femininity, an image of the ideal woman, the anima, and this image is activated and projected onto the world through relationships with real women. A man who has not recognized his anima does not love the real woman, but the unconscious image she evokes. Conversely, if a woman has not integrated her incomplete anima, she may unconsciously become a trigger for chaotic reactions in men and simultaneously be pulled into her darkness. She seeks love, but acts from a fear of abandonment. She craves connection, but sends signals of insecurity. And when no one comes to fill her, she free falls into emptiness, drowning in emotions as if fate is reprogramming old wounds over and over again. This is not a harsh condemnation, but a wake-up call. Jung never taught us to deny or eliminate negative femininity. He taught us to face it, to understand, integrate, and transform it. For only when a woman recognizes the shadow of her femininity can she harness its archetypal power to connect authentically, heal, and create consciously. This is the first step in the journey of individuation, the process Jung described as the path to one's true self, where the ego is no longer dictated by the unconscious, but becomes the master of one's life. Feminine energy is not something you become. It is something you confront, understand, and learn to navigate. And when you do, you are no longer defined by gender, attractiveness, or the gaze of others. You become a whole being, powerful yet profound, mysterious yet healing. So, how do you recognize when your feminine energy is no longer guiding you, but manipulating you from behind the curtain of the unconscious? If you are ready to look directly at what is silently operating within you, here are 6 subtle yet profound signs that you may be carrying a negative form of feminine energy and the starting point for your transformation journey. Before we begin, leave a comment saying, "I honor my life," if you are ready for this journey with these 6 signs. Number 2. 6 signs of a woman carrying negative feminine energy. Sign 1. Seductive manipulation. Seduction, in its purest form, is an integral part of femininity. But when it lacks self-awareness, it becomes a tool of an immature ego, controlling, dominating, and draining the life force of both parties. A woman who manipulates not only controls others, but is herself controlled by the fear that no one will love her if she doesn't make them addicted to her. In Carl Jung's psychoanalysis, this is when the anima becomes an archetypal energy overtaken by the shadow. Jung warned that, if unrecognized, the negative anima creates an emotional labyrinth of illusions for both the woman and the man, a place where love is mistaken for mutual addiction, and connection becomes a power struggle. You may believe you're simply being feminine, naturally attractive, but ask yourself, are you seducing or are you manipulating? There's a fine line between attraction and control. The most dangerous part? Most of us don't realize when we've crossed it. It starts subtly. But beneath that gentle surface lies a system of emotional control operating from the unconscious. You know how to stay silent at just the right moment to make him anxious. You don't need to say anything. Just a subtle withdrawal is enough to leave a man disoriented, feeling guilty without knowing why. That's no longer giving space, it's an invisible punishment. And he, no matter how strong, begins to adjust his behavior to avoid hurting the woman he loves, even if he's done nothing wrong. You also know when to act vulnerable or charmingly clumsy. You could manage on your own, but you choose to say, because they see themselves reflected in you. Sign 2. Perpetual victimhood. Perhaps you don't realize it, but sometimes the wounds you cling to become the most powerful weapon you wield in relationships. This is when you don't seek connection, you demand atonement, compensation. Not from him, but from everyone who has ever hurt you before. And he, no matter how much he loves you, cannot soothe the pain he didn't cause. I'm not saying that playing the victim means you're pretending. On the contrary, your pain is real. You feel you've been betrayed, abandoned, loved the wrong person, or not loved in the right way. But instead of healing, you wear that pain like a badge of identity, reminding the world that you deserve to be prioritized, cherished, and loved unconditionally without being accountable for any of your actions. You've caught yourself feeling relieved when he feels guilty, as if he's paying the price for wounds others inflicted on you in the past. You might be the one who always says, "No one has ever truly loved me." "I'm always the one who gets hurt," or "No one understands me." You believe this so deeply that every situation is translated into the language of victimhood. I am the one who is wronged. He's late for a date, and you're unimportant. He needs space, and you're abandoned. He's tired, and you instantly think he's falling out of love. It's not because you're overly sensitive. It's because old wounds are controlling the lens through which you see the world. When you live in the victim role long enough, you learn one thing. People will stay if they feel you need to be saved. So, you build an identity rooted in pain to keep others close through guilt. You make them feel guilty if they don't love you the right way, if they don't guess your emotions, if they don't always put you first. Psychology calls this secondary gain. You unconsciously reap benefits from continued suffering. Pain makes you feel special. You don't have to step out of your comfort zone or take responsibility for actions that hurt others, because you're the one who's been hurt more. You often recount your past as a long series of painful chapters in which you're the victim. I always meet terrible people. I always give more than I get. I've never been loved the right way. And you repeat this in every story, every self-introduction. You don't share to connect, you share to warn others. If you love me, be careful. I've been hurt too much already, so don't do anything to hurt me. But this defensiveness prevents you from receiving anything good because you're already convinced that pain is inevitable. You want to be loved without having to fix anything, and that's entirely valid. But you also feel threatened when others point out that you're overreacting or acting irrationally. You don't hear their feedback. You hear the echo of old wounds. I'm being criticized again. I'm misunderstood again. And so, you shut down real dialogue, protecting the wound instead of healing it. Sometimes you see other women who are strong, confident, and know what they want, and you feel jealous. You think they're cold, harsh, or unemotional. But deep down, you know you crave the freedom to choose, to be loved without having to trade on pity. If you recognize yourself in these behaviors, remember, you're not wrong. You're simply carrying old beliefs, old wounds, and survival mechanisms you once needed. But you're no longer in that old place. Now, you have the power to choose a life not defined by the victim role, but by a mature self. One that knows your emotions are real, but also knows you have the strength to not be controlled by them. Here's a harsh truth. No one will love a perpetual victim forever. When you repeatedly play the victim, you lose the ability to see the other person for who they are. You only see them as a supporting character in your sad story, and sooner or later, they'll step back because they cannot live forever in the shadow of wounds they didn't cause. Sign 3. Obsession with control. Jealousy, control, and possessiveness do not stem from dominance. They arise from the fear of being left behind, from the invisible wounds of never feeling like the first choice. When this fear goes unacknowledged, it manifests as behaviors you call love, but are, in truth, control cloaked in the soft guise of care. You say you just want to know where he's going, who he's with, what he's doing. But you're not asking to know, you're asking to manage. Any ambiguity in his answers triggers anxiety, restlessness, and a cascade of imagined betrayals in your mind. You feel that if you don't grasp every detail, love will slip through your fingers. You check his phone, reread old messages, search for signs of someone else, not to find the truth, but to confirm a pre-existing fear. I'm not enough to be kept. You start shaping how he lives. You suggest that his female colleague is too close. You analyze that his friends have values different from yours, and you express disappointment when he forgets to text regularly or doesn't reciprocate your attention as expected. You don't call it control. You say you want him to make you feel secure. But in reality, it's not security. It's the fear of being replaced, trying to control every minute detail to prevent the uncontrollable. His choice. You're jealous not because he's done something wrong, but because any woman who crosses his path becomes a threat. Not because you fear they're better or more beautiful, but because you can't see your worth. From Jung's perspective, this is a reaction rooted in the primal wound of abandonment or betrayal from childhood. When a child witnesses a loved one leave, change, or act inconsistently, they grow up with an unconscious belief: if I don't do something, people will leave me. And so, as an adult, you operate from that old programming, controlling not because you crave power, but because you fear collapse. Many modern women, especially among the younger generation, are swept into a wave of misguided ideology disguised as feminism. That control is power, that men must submit, report, and prove their loyalty hourly, or else they're not decent enough, or definitely hiding something. The danger is that this mindset is normalized, even celebrated as a sign of awakened femininity, when in reality, it's a reenactment of trauma, repackaged in a sharper, more reasoned but ultimately hollow shell. You may have seen it, conversations among girlfriends where, if he doesn't text while out, something's wrong, is taken as a given. Or advice like, girls today need to keep their man in check, know his schedule, test his loyalty, is passed off as relationship wisdom. A woman who loves herself is defined as one who leaves no room for a man's privacy, who always knows where he is, who he's with, what he's doing, and what he's thinking. From a psychological perspective, this isn't feminism. It's a conflation of power with control, of self-love with manipulating others. The tragedy is that many young women, in their quest for autonomy after generations of passive women, have swung to the opposite extreme, becoming reasoned dictators rather than conscious free women. It's even more dangerous when social media fuels this. Viral videos teaching how to test your boyfriend's loyalty, strategies to make men obey, or how to control a man's emotions are hailed as victories. But the truth is, when you resort to manipulation to keep someone, you're no longer in a human-to-human relationship. You're running a campaign. You might think, women have been controlled for generations. Now it's men's turn to feel it. But healing doesn't come from reenacting what you've endured. It comes from breaking the cycle. Ask yourself, if your mother endured control from her in-laws and she did the same to your sister-in-law, would you accept it as natural tradition? If you felt restricted, you should understand how precious freedom in love is, and no one, including you, has the right to take it from another. Jung said, "Where love rules, there is no will to power, and where power predominates, their love is lacking. Becoming your true self, not a distorted feminist version driven by trauma and a thirst for control, is true liberation. If you want a man to love you faithfully and maturely, start by allowing him to be himself, just as you wish to be yourself. Love doesn't arise from the pressure to report, the fear of judgment, or the guilt of not texting on time. Love grows from voluntary choice, from choosing to stay each day without anyone's control. Sign 4. Emotional fantasy and drama addiction. Sometimes it's not others who hurt you. Sometimes you write a script in your mind and live in it as if it were reality. When someone enters your life, they cease to be a flesh and blood person and become a character in the ongoing drama you direct, where you're the star and they're cast as the villain. The truth is, many women aren't addicted to love or being loved. They're addicted to emotional drama. They don't want a calm, steady relationship. They need one chaotic enough to unleash the tidal waves of their emotions. They crave someone who puts them on an emotional roller coaster. Every argument, every disappointment, every tear makes them feel alive, present, and worthy of attention. Drama is a subtle addiction. You feel bored if things are too calm. A man who offers consistent, faithful love, texts regularly, and doesn't cause pain feels lackluster. You call it a relationship without passion, but the truth is, your nervous system is accustomed to living in a defensive state. Peace makes you suspicious. Chaotic situations, surging emotions, and loss of control make you feel vibrant. Few talk about it, but emotional addiction is real, scientifically grounded, and more dangerous than many realize. Imagine you only feel alive when experiencing intense emotions, raging anger, profound pain, dramatic ecstasy, or crushing despair. It sounds like a rich, colorful life. But in reality, it's a repetitive chemical mechanism that destroys peace and distorts how you love. Biologically, each intense emotion, feeling abandoned, jealous, hurt, or elated by a sweet gesture, triggers a chemical cocktail in your brain: adrenaline, cortisol, dopamine, oxytocin. Over time, your nervous system becomes accustomed to this high intensity and dependent on the stimulation. Like someone addicted to caffeine or sugar, you can't taste normalcy anymore. Everything needs to be intense to feel anything. This is why many women, despite their pain, can't leave drama-filled relationships. Drama feeds that emotional addiction. His silence can spark an entire play in your head. A slight change in his tone is enough for you to imagine a betrayal. It's not that you're paranoid, it's that your mind is used to living in high-stimulation scripts rather than embracing the quiet ambiguity of reality. Here's the frightening part. Illusion replaces truth. A late text becomes a sign of a crumbling relationship. A day without a call is woven into "he's pulling away." When reality isn't dramatic enough, you unconsciously or even deliberately create conflict, pushing the relationship to the brink to trigger the intense emotions you crave. You call it intuition, but most of the time, it's insecurity rationalized by imagination. Psychology calls this anticipatory anxiety, fearing something bad will happen in the future, so your mind acts as if it's already true. The tragedy is that when you believe you'll be hurt, you act as if you've been hurt, and those actions make the relationship toxic, a self-fulfilling prophecy. Someone might say you're acting, but I know you genuinely feel these things. Yet emotions, if not recognized with awareness, will cloud reality like a thin in the shadows. Another actor stands, one forbidden from taking the spotlight. That's the part you suppress. Your anger, envy, desire, possessiveness, raw instinct. She's barred by the director, you, from stepping onto the stage because you believe that if she appears, the audience will leave. Who would love an improper woman? The problem is, she doesn't stay silent. She whispers to you in the dead of night. Why are you hiding me? You're jealous. Don't pretend to be noble. If you keep ignoring her, she'll pull the strings behind the scenes, ruining the performance, causing you to explode uncontrollably or lash out at people who have nothing to do with it. This is the clearest sign of repression. When you don't allow yourself to own a part of who you are, you see it everywhere outside. You resent a woman who dares to voice her needs because, deep down, you envy her freedom. You label someone selfish while secretly craving to live for yourself just once. You despise manipulative women, yet you've used emotions as an excuse to control a relationship. You're not bad. You're just too afraid to face the parts of yourself you're not ready to accept. Society has conditioned you to unconsciously sever your most primal instincts, leaving you to live in a fragile shell you call femininity. But Jung said clearly, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. You don't become profound, strong, or free by clinging only to the light. You must dare to touch your darkness, name it, understand it, and learn to integrate it. The more you deny bad emotions, the more easily they manipulate you. The more you strive to be good, the more you risk falling into the role of victim or saint, unreal, fragile images laden with expectations. The most dangerous part is this. The more you reject your shadow, the less you can see who truly loves you, because they only love the bright parts you permit to show, while the vulnerable, rebellious, imperfect parts remain hidden like a shameful secret. Sign 6. Avoidance of individuation. You may think you're searching for love, but if you look deeper, you might be seeking a place to hide from yourself. Because the true journey Carl Jung emphasized, individuation doesn't begin when you find someone to love. It begins when you dare to be alone and face the emptiness no one can fill. Individuation isn't about becoming perfect. It's the journey back to your true self, where the ego, the shadow, the anima, your past, and your potential sit together. But this process isn't smooth. It's lonely, messy, and full of contradictions. So many women bypass it, not because they lack depth, but because they fear the question, if no one is by my side, who am I? You may recognize yourself here. You only feel enough when someone reflects your worth to you, a lover, a spouse, a suitor. You fall in love, rush in, break apart, then leap into another cycle. When single, you don't take time to explore yourself, but dive into movies, tarot cards, quick dates with Tinder matches, not to find true love, but to see if destiny has someone lined up for you. You don't ask yourself questions, you ask tarot, is he my soulmate? As if the cards know you better than you know yourself. Jung called this a refusal of the inner process, a soul suspended in midair, endlessly circling relationships as if they hold the answers. But no one can complete you if you don't dare step through the threshold alone. Imagine an unfinished castle. Each time you start to build a part, your passion, your convictions, your inner strength, you abandon it to rush to the door, welcoming a new relationship. You hope they'll bring the missing brick. But when they leave, the castle remains incomplete, and you keep searching. Jung didn't write about romantic love stories. He wrote about the inward return, the hardest but most necessary journey, where you no longer live through others' eyes, but see yourself. Jung said, "The reason for evil in the world is that people are not able to tell their stories. You may think you're loving others deeply, but if you haven't dared to sit with the unanswered parts of yourself, if you haven't begun a life with just you haven't truly started the journey of love. Because when you're not whole, you love from lack. And what you call love may just be the fear of abandonment disguised as emotion." Individuation doesn't mean staying alone forever. But you must dive into yourself at least once. Otherwise, you'll live forever as a puzzle piece. And no one, no matter how kind, can complete someone still fleeing their essence. At this point, how many of these signs have you recognized in yourself? How many parts of you have been hiding from yourself under the guise of love? If anything in these words has made you pause, leave a comment to share with us. Doing so will help you see yourself more clearly through your own story. It's a signal of feeling unsafe. Anger isn't something to hide. It's a sign you've silenced your voice for too long. Imagine this practice as descending into an underground cellar where the shadow reigns, carrying a lantern. Each line you write is a step deeper, not to get lost, but to reclaim the parts hidden since childhood, from early disappointments, from moments you were told, "Good girls don't get angry," "Love means enduring," or "A beautiful woman is an agreeable woman." As you write over time, you'll start to see what you once called ugly, and realize much of it is suppressed vitality, instincts boxed in, strength restrained in the form of wounds. You'll find the shadow isn't as frightening as you thought. It's just waiting for you to return, to stop being labeled shameful. This practice won't instantly change you, but it's the foundation, the root, the place where you begin to distinguish what needs healing from what simply needs acknowledgement. When you stop denying the dark, you don't just become stronger, you become whole. Practice 2. Breaking the victim script. After finding the courage to name your shadow, the next step is dismantling the longest-running role in your life, the victim. The first task is to identify the old story you tell about yourself. Listen to the words you say in your head and to others when something upsets you. Do you often think, "I'm always the one who gets hurt. No one truly understands me. I always give more than I get," or "People always abandon me when I need them most"? These aren't just expressions of emotion. They're a repetitive script your mind uses to reinforce your identity as the victim. And when you live by that script for too long, you unconsciously recreate situations to keep playing that role. This practice demands something incredibly difficult, but essential. When emotions arise, pause, step back from yourself, observe, and ask, what old pattern am I reenacting here? Who am I waiting for to save me? And if no one does, can I stand up on my own? You don't need to be falsely strong, but you must stop waiting for others to take responsibility for your emotions. This is the shift from, "I'm sad because he hurt me," to, "I'm sad because a part of me feels abandoned, and I need to stay with that," instead of projecting it onto someone else. Carl Jung said, "Freedom stretches only as far as the limits of our consciousness." This isn't easy. It requires you to stop reciting the familiar story and write a new chapter. Gradually, you'll see that when you take responsibility for your emotions, you no longer depend on how others treat you to define your worth. From this place, you're ready to move into a deeper phase, connecting with the goddess within, the healed, wise, and freest version of your feminine energy. Practice 3. Connecting with the inner goddess. Once you've dared to face your shadow and taken responsibility for your emotions, to truly return to authentic feminine energy, you must take one more step. Reconnect with the archetypal feminine within you, not the image constructed by society, not the role of the gentle, likable woman, but the primal goddess, free, whole, and brimming with vital energy. According to Carl Jung, the anima, the feminine archetype, is the source of intuition, emotion, nurturing, and creativity. But if not integrated properly, it becomes chaotic, jealous, passive, craving validation. To transform, you must redefine femininity, not based on men's gazes or the standards of a good woman, but on your vibrant presence in each moment. This practice begins with returning to your body, Place your hands on your chest, your stomach, and take a deep breath. No need to force stillness or meditate like a textbook. Just ask, what am I feeling? What does my body want right now? Feminine energy doesn't operate through willpower. It lives through sensation, slow rhythms, and honest pauses. Spend time communing with your inner goddess, not through words, but through action. When you choose to be alone without feeling lonely. When you write what you truly want, without editing it to be reasonable. When you dance freely with no one watching, eat what you crave without guilt, or wear clothes that make you feel like yourself. That's when the goddess begins to awaken. Imagine yourself as a forest, lush and shadowy, with sunlight and thunderstorms. The goddess doesn't live in neatly trimmed flowers. She thrives in the wild, whole, unapologetic. When you allow yourself to be that forest, you no longer need anyone to water you. You become the source. From this connection, you're rooted enough to step into the final ground, where feminine power exists not just in emotion, but radiates through action, redefining seduction from a tool of control to the art of presence. Because in your presence, they see themselves more clearly. And nothing is more captivating. Some doors only open when you walk through, not with pride, but with raw authenticity. You may have lived like a mirror, reflecting others' expectations, bending yourself to fit, shimmering but shapeless. But at some point, the mirror tires. It cracks. And each shard is a reminder that it's time to stop reflecting and start being. When feminine energy is no longer manipulated by wounds, it won't scream in silence or seduce through lack. It will lead you to the fire, where you no longer crave control over love. You become love. Every choice, every refusal, every no becomes a bold stroke on the map of your being. If this video resonates with you, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications today. I also want to leave you with a question to sit with, one that could transform your relationships if you dare to answer it with your heart. Are you ready to embark on the journey of understanding yourself and awakening the wholeness within?